What's up, everybody? It's Clark here for the BOS Sports Blogcast, coming to you ahead of a couple of most exciting days NBA offseason. Of course, NBA draft, the first round tomorrow, the 22nd, and Tuesday, and the second round on Wednesday. Already a little bit of action here for Atlanta Hawks. We'll get into that in just a minute. The Atlanta Braves are 3-7 their last 10. A little bit of a skid coming into San Diego. They're facing the Padres tonight on West Coast time at 10 p.m. But hopefully they continue to cruise and smooth things out, perhaps get some trade deadline help as well, and cruise to their 24th division championship. And of course, the Yankees, they're in first place as well now. They need to keep pace and keep that division championship lead over the Yanks. So big news for Atlanta Hawks over this weekend, last couple of days, as they re-signed CJ McCollum to a 1-year, $21 million extension to stay with the Hawks. In addition, they traded 2 second-round picks to Oklahoma City Thunder for Aaron Wiggins, who shot nearly 50% from three-point land over 78 games just a couple seasons ago, I believe the 23-24 season. As well, he's a savvy veteran, solid on defense as well. Get him in Kyle Korver's shot lab, see how that works out. Maybe he can get back up to those 40s, 50% shooting, upper 40% three-point shot there for Andrew Wiggins. A nice acquisition there by Anzi Soleil, who has extended himself this offseason. So these moves for the Atlanta Hawks, they put Atlanta just under $195 million in payroll with the projected first-round draft picks, according to NBA reporter Bobby Marks, who stated this trade may wait to be made official until early July using the Luke Kennard trade exception that was picked up at the trade deadline. And that's also how the Atlanta Hawks acquired one of these outgoing second-round picks. They traded 2 to the Oklahoma City Thunder, who look to be restocking draft picks as they have picks in this upcoming draft as well. Cycling some talent for last year's NBA champion. Nearly made again, of course, the finals. Lost closely to the Spurs. And so second round draft pick going out for Andrew Wiggins, picked up through Luke Kennard trade to the Lakers, and as well might be using that trade exception as well. At this time, it feels like the Hawks, they might be gearing up for an even larger move. As these acquisitions, they really free up the Atlanta Hawks to do whatever they please with the 8th pick. They have the 8th and 23rd pick in the first round. Second round, they have the 57th pick. Not quite the 58th pick, so one away from Manu Ginobili number there. But we'll find out very soon if that happens or not, what they might do with that 8th pick if they select a young guard, O'Day Mara as well from Michigan, a center on some people's draft boards. And I could see the pick being traded. They already acquired Aaron Wiggins. He's a solid guard. And for the Hawks, they have a solid combination of guards with CJ McCollum, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dyson Daniels, Aaron Wiggins being picked up. So the Hawks have several players who can play 1 to 3 positions. CJ McCollum, you probably won't see him at the 3, but talking about Dyson Daniels and co. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he can probably play that in a pinch, but he's mostly going to be a point guard and 2 as well. They get that large pickup. We'll get to that in just a second. They have another swing guard. So we just got through a very exciting NBA Finals. A lot of NBA fans are probably hoping for that series to go 6 games. And we, of course, got rematch 1999 Finals. It's a different out time. Knicks winning this time. No Spurs, StarCraft, LAN party after the chip. We're also getting into upcoming NBA draft. And we're looking at it to be a possible reincarnation of the 1999 NBA draft. Of course, you had stellar guards in that draft. Steve Francis and Baron Davis, who somewhat changed the trajectory of the point guard position, becoming high flyers, first kind of pioneers. Of course, they had dunkers at that. Kenny Jet Smith, he could throw down a slam. But Baron Davis, Steve Francis, really about the first of that generation. Of course, Jason Terry was also in that draft in the first round. 3 really stellar guards there in the early 2000s. And, of course, Jason Terry eventually won that chip with Dallas, a key player for them. So, and like this in the draft, you have a lot of stellar guards, and they're about, of course, they're a little bit more sizable than Steve Francis and Baron Davis were, but that's about the way the trajectory of the position has been trending with guards such as Cade Cunningham, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, taller, more built, different kind of profile of NBA point guard than we kind of saw in past years. Smaller guards and Trae Young and Jalen Brunson, a little bit more of a throwback as far as the position goes historically, but as the human race evolves, so does the game of basketball. So does the point guard position. And of course, Manu Ginobili, aforementioned, he's the 58th pick. I believe he played a couple of years in overseas before he came over. A lot like some of the international players used to do. So fast forward to this number one, this year's draft in 2026. The number one pick, quite an outlier. You can't quite find a player like AJ Diabasta could potentially be, and he's projected to be selected first by the Wizards. Trae Young, he opted out of his player option, and the Wizards, they just re-signed him, I believe, 4 years, $212 million over 4 years. Of course, we'll explore the potential scenarios with Trae Young in future episodes, but of course, the Wizards, they have a lot of players themselves, and we'll see how that works out. And AJ Diabasta, Alex Sarr, Trae Young, it could potentially be a very nice trio there for the Wizards. AJ Diabasta, of course, the 1999 draft, talking about a little about that. Lamar Odom was selected, and he was an athletic forward, a little bit similar size to AJ Diabasta, but AJ Diabasta, way more shot-making skills, more athleticism, which if you think of Lamar Odom, he's certainly one of the more athletic players of his era at that position. AJ Diabasta looks to be even a step ahead of that. So Lamar Odom, he did have a spectacular career himself, but the height and ceiling you see in AJ Diabasta could potentially be even larger than that. The 1999 draft, they also had nice players such as Sean Marion, Elton Brand, exciting power forwards, big game changers for the draft in that year. And this year, you have a couple exciting power forwards as well. Cam Boozer, Carlos Boozer's son, and such. So we'll get into that more. For the Hawks, after re-signing CJ McCollum and trading for Aaron Wiggins, making a big trade, being a part of the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade, and trading the 8th pick, either more likely the Bucks or the Celtics, I see as a possibility. And there's rumors swirling. Giannis is believed to be traded somewhere to the Heat or Celtics. And I believe the Hawks can really make a compelling package between the 8th pick and Jonathan Kuminga to the Bucks and figure out a 3-way trade and land Jaylen Brown. Rumors are there'll be some draft capital as well coming Celtics way, which would make the trade make even more sense for the Bucks. Stock up on draft picks. Get the 8th pick, Keyshawn Flemings, projected by a lot of people. I see him an all-star potential player. A lot of people do. A lot of talent. But Kingston Flemings. And so that's a trade that would be very intriguing for all three parties and potentially work out. From the Hawks' perspective, as far as what would be outgoing, aforementioned that 8th pick. And with that, you could send a player as well as Jonathan Kuminga. It'd be a big salary piece in that trade. Immediate high impact player for the Bucks now. Would pair well potentially with Kingston Flemings, as well as Zachary Richey or Corey Kispert would be about in the salary range as well. That to work out. Corey Kispert, a little bit more refined veteran. And he was one of the only people in this playoffs who could guard Jalen Brunson. He had a few successful possessions there in that first round, Jalen Brunson. But he's a nice defender, savvy defender, and you get the 3-point shot and get to the basket, slash a little bit. Zachary Richey, a little bit rough, refined around the edges, but higher ceiling, obviously, first round pick. We've seen flashes of Zachary Richey be absolutely brilliant. So I think he's a little bit more intriguing towards the Bucks. Potential 3-way trade. And Buddy Hield as well. Be another player aggregate in to get that salary match done. They can match the Hawks will be able to do 125% salary simultaneous trade exception as they're below the first apron and able to do so substantially. So the Hawks would be receiving about $9.3 million in salary incoming without factoring in the first round, the 8th pick as well, the 8th spot rookie salary contract that would be factored in the Hawks payroll as well. Jaylen Brown, $57 million contract, as well as a conglomeration of draft picks. Centerpieces of the trade being 8th pick and Jonathan Kuminga. One thing that doesn't quite make sense is some of the rumors out there as stated Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis Jr. would potentially have to be attached. A potential trade. I think both those kinds of pieces make more sense for the Celtics, although I don't know how they carve that out salary-wise, as they're, I believe they're over the first apron. Have to look at that. But Kyle Kuzma is about a $20 million contract. Bobby Portis Jr. I think would make a little bit more sense there with the Celtics in rotation. Have a solid four in Bobby Portis Jr. coming off the bench, Jason Tatum and Giannis. Anyway, it's cut. It's likely the Hawks will be taking on a small amount of salary incoming. It's important to keep in mind for the Hawks trying to get over 7 feet in the center department. That's a must for the Hawks in this offseason if they want to contend. If they want to upgrade their status from a playoff contender to a conference or title contender, they have to get over a 7-foot department. And I do not believe that means replacing Onyeka Okongwu. Onyeka Okongwu can definitely be a starting center. With that 3-point knockdown shot we saw, he can absolutely spread the floor for potential Jalen Johnson, Jaylen Brown, and co line up there in Quinn Snyder's 5-out motion offense. So likely if the Hawks can hold on to 23rd pick and potential Jaylen Brown incoming trade, they would hope to land a center like Henry Vassar out of UNC, still on the draft board, just under 7 feet, originally from Estonia, played a few years in college, provides height just under 7 feet, and has a great 3-point shot. I believe he shot over 40% last season. That would fit really well into Quinn Snyder's 5-out motion offense sets. Really potentially better than any the players in free agency and potential trade candidacy. Of course, Jock Landale, I believe he's about an inch or so shorter, not quite 7 feet. Hawks absolutely want to bring Jock Landale as far as a third-string center. Can't get with two, as we found out last season. That didn't quite work out. One got injured, so Henry Vassar would be a very interesting candidate. And, of course, that 3-point shot shows way more promise than even a Walker Kessler, who sometimes shoots a 3, but as far as the Hawks getting over 7 feet, Walker Kessler is very dubious. Is likely going to be an expensive contract, restricted free agent, sign trade, likely not going to happen, likely not a fit. The free agents, you have DeAndre Ayton. He does not shoot a 3-point shot, although mixed with Jock Landale, if we landed Jaylen Brown too, I think that would potentially be an interesting option for the Hawks. If he opts out of his contract, I believe he has a 1-year player option with the Lakers, $8 to $9 million range. So potentially opt out and look for a little bit more elsewhere or just a different situation. There's a little bit of butting heads there in LA last year, as reported. So Henry Vassar, he's projected in a couple rounds. I believe CBS has him 24th. No, I have to go back and look at that. I've got 3 mock drafts here. We'll take a look at here. Got Kevin O'Connor, Jeremy Wu, and Cameron Salerno for CBS. We'll pull that up and get all of that in just a minute. One draft has him 24th. Other has him going the Celtics. I believe 27th or 28th pick. And so he's well within the range of that Hawks 23rd pick to potentially be selected as Henry Vassar. And I compare him a little bit to Maxime Reynaud. I believe Maxime Reynaud was a little bit taller coming out of France, but he came in solid presence coming into the league and He has a little bit of a 3-point shot, I believe. Of course, translating from Euro ball to NBA, a little bit higher jump than 3-point shot, CAA to NBA, but still longer shot. But Henry Vossar shooting over 40%. Get him in that Kyle Korver shot lab and see what happens. Maybe Kyle Kuzma will have a shot lab one day like Kyle Korver. Probably not. So after all those moves, Hawks are somehow to land Jaylen Brown. Looks like they'll be slightly under luxury tax at $201 million, which is exactly, and with the slightly under $201 million with the acquisition of Jaylen Brown. Moving out, they pick 12, so that's just under luxury tax, about where the Hawks like to be going into the season. They usually make a move at the deadline and get them slightly over, but if they were to sign Jock Landale in addition to that, that probably puts them at or a little bit over the luxury tax, but still under the first apron at $209 million, which would give the Hawks flexibility at the trade deadline as well. That would put them at 15 players with the second round pick as well. If they're 57 pick in the draft, that's probably not going to amount to anything as far as trade value. So I imagine the Hawks are going to keep it. So CJ McCollum, Jaylen Brown, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Onyeka Okongwu, Corey Kispert, assuming Bucks might want Zachary Shea more, Asa Newell, Mo Gay, Aaron Wiggins, Jock Landale, Henry Vossar, a second round pick. And then you have two-way players, Ray J. Dennis, John Gilbert. And that's 15. At that point, the Hawks could add players veteran minimum. As you already have two three-way players. You can have up to 15 players and 3 two-way players. So Hawks could add a minimum contract, more two-way players to fill out the roster. We'll get into a full exploration 2026 draft. We already touched on quite a few topics as well as what I'd like the Hawks to do. We'll get into more of that in just a minute. But first, do some Braves recap. This is the BOS Sports Blogcast. So the Hawks are 48-28. They still have a technical lead over the Dodgers in the conference, but they also technically tied. A little bit tough to explain. The Dodgers 49-29, Atlanta 48-28. Slightly better win percentage, but the Dodgers do have more wins overall. And they did win the series out west. They'll play another series at Truist Park. We'll see how those things work out as far as where they lie at the end of the season. Braves, you definitely want the 2 seed. The 3rd seed and the East, of course, the division winner with the least amount of wins. Hopefully that will be an NL Central team, which Milwaukee's in the lead right now. Braves, they just beat 2 out of 3 them. That was a tough loss on Sunday, so another series win. They'll hold the tiebreaker over the likely NL Central winner, as the Brewers are quite formidable. Already at 46-29, Cardinals in Chicago. Cardinals are starting to fall off. 41-34, 4-6 in the last 10. The Cubs heat up a little bit, 40-37 overall in the year, 6-4. Braves need to keep winning series, and they'll likely stay ahead of those 2 NL Central teams. The Phillies are starting to creep up. They're 6-4. Last 10 under new manager Don Mattingly. They've been very solid. 42-35 overall in the year. Watch out for Miami Marlins. Hope we don't play them soon. They're 7-3 right now. Heating up on a little bit. San Diego Padres, they've cooled off. They're just 2 games over 500 coming into the series. So let's look at the series upcoming starters tonight. We have Grant Holmes versus Michael King. Michael King, of course, is probably their frontline starter for the Padres. Tough to see after a tough day at the plate for all the players yesterday. And then, of course, the travel out to the West Coast. Sometimes it can be helpful, a couple extra hours. for them. Of course, some of those spent on a plane. Grant Holmes, of course, coming in this season with a partially torn UCL concern coming into the season. And he's been solid overall. Might be moved at one point to a bullpen role, depending on what happens at the trade deadline. But he's already thrown about 1,121 pitches. Need to get an innings count. Get to that in just a second. He has got a 4.33 ERA, 5.28 FIP. That's a bit concerning. Gonna look up Grant Holmes' innings right now. 26.9% average whiff rate. He's been throwing the slider the most this season. The usage rate of 39.8%. Getting a nice whiff rate of 39%. Seeing 41 inches of vertical drop. Quite stellar slider by Grant Holmes. Four-seam fastball as well as held its velo even with injury concern. Still averaging around 94, and he can pump it up a little bit sometimes. Throwing as well sinker curveball, cutter, and changeup. Might be a 68.2 innings pitched. Yes, two-seam fastball, not a sinker. So, Tuesday night we have J.R. Ritchie. He's has a two-seam fastball he developed just coming into this year. He's using it at about 16% clip. His main breaking ball is the curve. Changeup as well, four-seam fastball. A little bit mixed success. J.R. Ritchie's run into a little bit bad luck, but a 6.03 FIP and limited sample size, 4.54 ERA. He's likely to stay here in the Braves rotation in the short term. Martin Perez, he had that nice duel Friday night, came up and wound up being solid. Of course, the Braves, they pulled it off there in the ninth inning, in the late innings, and came back to win that game Friday night. Of course, Martin Perez versus Jacob Mezorowski was the big pitching match at Friday night. Everyone was excited about it, and Martin Perez did just enough to get the Braves their victory. He has nice numbers, 2.78 ERA, 3.7 FIP. Throwing changeup, sinker, cutter, curveball, four-seam fastball. Curveball, 49.3%. Ooh, drop. Trying to look up the whiff rate for his cutter. It seems like he had a lot of success with that. Only 19.3% whiff rate. That seems a little bit low for what we see in the games. Michael King, sinker, changeup, sweeper, four-seam fastball, slider. 3.6 ERA, 4.36 FIP. He's having another solid season. Of course, he's a part of Juan Soto trade from the Padres to the Yankees. Now having success and one of the mainstays for the Padres in rotation. Some of the Braves, they're on quite a heater in the last 15 days or last 10 games for Ozzie Albies. Hitting 341 with 861 OPS, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. Matt Olson has been solid. Of course, he's trailing Freddie Freeman in first baseman race. It's tough. Matt Olson's obviously having the better year substantially. Freddie Freeman, he might be in that grandfather first ballot Hall of Famer clause where he just automatically gets in. Kind of like we saw guys like Derek Jeter whenever he was on the ballot. He just be a starter automatically. And, of course, very popular player as well. Drake Baldwin, he's struggled since coming back from injury. Only 5 games. Hopefully he picks it up here on his West Coast road trip. 3 versus the Padres, 3 versus the Giants. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Michael Harris, he's been solid. Hitting 300 with 790 OPS. Really spraying the ball to all parts of the field. Rowdy Tellez, he's with the Braves a little bit randomly. 200 batting average. He's got a hit in 5 plate appearances. Getting some time. So Eli White, he's getting more playing time. Of course, Ronald Acuna Jr., he's out with a hamstring injury. Probably looking at him coming back around the All-Star break. It's noted that it's the second hamstring, re-aggravated the same hamstring injury from last year. So the Braves looking to be cautious. And in his absence, Eli White over the last 10 games, 766 OPS, 250 average with a home run, 3 RBIs. Been solid. Mike Yastrzemski, he's back in a slow spot. Of course, he started the season slow, picked it up a little bit. And he's back to about 200 batting average of his last 9 games, 579 OPS. Joey Bart really struggled. Austin Wynns, I believe, I'm not sure if he passed the waiver wire and is in AAA now. He struggled. Ha-Seong Kim, everyone loves to pile on him, and he hasn't had a hit. In his last 6 games, he's played 6 games the last 15 days, 10 at-bats, no hits, 2 walks. Pretty rough for him. Rough time, of course, coming back from that ligament injury he suffered slipping on ice. Jorge Mateo, a player that we're hoping stepping up, and Ha-Seong Kim struggles, along with Mauricio Dubon. Mateo first, he's struggling quite mildly right now with a 188 average himself, 438 OPS, 3 hits in his last 16 at-bats. As well, Mauricio Dubon's cooled off a little bit, but he's picked it up as of late. He does have 9 hits in his last 30 at-bat. Oh, nope, that's Michael Harris. Mauricio Dubon, he has 11 hits in his last 40 at-bats. Good for a 275 average, 685 OPS. Austin Riley continues to struggle as well. 611 OPS, 229 average, 0 home runs in his last 35 at-bats, last 10 games. So for the Braves, we're seeing a lot of concerns here in June. Of course, had the hot start. Everyone's excited about this team. Everyone had him at first place. I had him number 1 in my power rankings at one point, but the shine is starting to come off. The wheels are starting to come off for the Braves as we head towards crucial performance deadlines here, All-Star break, and then heading into the trade deadline. Really want the Braves to show large signs of life of having several guys that could really carry the load. And we've seen flashes of that from players. Seen flashes of that from Drake Baldwin, from Matt Olson, Ozzie Albies, Michael Harris stepping up at times. But I just don't quite see as much shimmer in this team as I did the 2021 team. Even with the thumb injury to Travis d'Arnaud, he was perennial 300-plus average hitter. And, of course, the catcher, injury-prone position, and he wasn't quite a necessary player at the time. Except you could argue before the deadline 2021, but afterwards. And so, but prior to that, you saw Freddie Freeman absolutely going off. Ozzie Albies is a little bit younger, a little bit more hopefully reliable at the time. Austin Riley was stepping up. And so the Braves really had, and still had Dansby Swanson as well. We didn't have a hole at shortstop. That was when he was hitting 20, 30 bombs a year, 70, 80 RBIs. He could get a hit as well. Players just had several guys you get done. And this year, things been pretty rough. Quite inconsistent. The shine's a little bit off. I'm getting to be a little bit more hesitant what the Braves might do at the deadline. Of course, big rumors flying today and people talking about it. Mark Bowman's now talking about it. So you know there must be a little bit of smoke on the water there. So, of course, Tariq Skubal to the Braves, and that's been someone that I've been hopeful as well for. But at this point, the Braves might need a more of a wholesale change aim to get to the playoffs and survive as a top 2 seed, because you get there the 3rd seed and you play a wild card round versus the Phillies. That would not be fun. Ooh. That's the Braves fan style. So right now it's starting to look at more wholesale options. There's several players potentially look at even reunions with and get a lot of depth for the Braves. Sean Newcomb, he's had a nice year with the White Sox. I believe they've mostly used him as opener. He'd likely be low-cost acquisition for the Braves. And for what he's given the White Sox so far, that would help out quite a bit for the Braves as far as adding up innings to get through the rest of the season as well. It might perform well versus some more left-handed heavy lineups. Of course, you have to focus. In September, we have 6 or 7 games span of 2 weeks versus the Phillies. And so really have to gear up for that series, as that'll be a fight to the bitter end. Braves, they will be facing the Astros same weekend as Phillies Mets. So Mets will be looking to play spoiler. Juan Soto having MVP of Shohei Ohtani caliber stats. Ohtani didn't exist caliber stats. Juan Soto having a solid year. He'll still be on the Mets there during that Phillies Mets series in the year. And Braves will be facing the Astros, team that could be looking at a rebuild themselves and selling off major pieces. Well, for this Braves team, going in the trade deadline, hope for them to heat up. Hope for our key guys, Austin Riley and co. to heat up. Starting showing more flashes of life. Ronald Acuna Jr. come back from injury, stay healthy, heat up. Give the Braves reason to go all in at this trade deadline. Recently, I've been exploring up until our recent injuries. Of course, Spencer Strider, is hard for him to go down. Have to see. Ronald Acuna Jr., he went down as well. Prior to that, Braves are looking at potentially making a big swing move. With these injuries now and the recent struggles of core pieces, you might be looking at more of a wholesale acquisition. Get several guys at the deadline that can make impacts. So a little bit of whip around the league here. Take a look at American League standings. The Tampa Bay Rays have cooled off. They're now 2 games behind the Yankees, both in the division, and they're also second there in the American League. We'll see how long that lasts, but Yankees, they're not getting any competition from Blue Jays, Red Sox, 2 teams thought would be there in the division. Orioles, they're about cooked themselves. No help from those teams right now as far as keeping the Yankees out, getting, I believe, what would be their 22nd division championship. Braves have 23, so they'd be just one behind us if the Braves were not to close out this season with a division championship. And with the gaudy opponent that is the Dodgers, and with the Braves have a nice crop of prospects that could really keep this team afloat and in the playoffs for years to come. So making a wholesale move to get a Tarek Skubal, which I think you're probably looking at Spencer Schwellenbach would be gone, along with a couple top pitching prospects, Owen Murphy, a guy further down the line like Blake Berhalter, and I think a couple bats would also be included, such as Luis Guanipa, a top 25 prospect. But a guy slipping down a little bit in the Braves' recent minor league talent acquisitions. And I think that's about the start to a Tarek Skubal package of what the Braves could offer compared to several other teams. The Brewers got top prospects. They got several top 40 prospects. The Pirates do, Dodgers. So Mariners as well. They also have several prospects. And they've got a field of pitchers as well they could send in return that are all healthy right now. They say the Mariners are a team of number 2 pitchers. Just take one of them and add one of their top 40 prospects, and boom, that's instantly better than Spencer Schwellenbach and Owen Murphy. So might have to include Cam Caminiti to get that done. At that point, that's quite a wholesale move of prospects. Of course, we'll see where the Braves lie after the draft. They have, I believe, the 8th and 27th pick, starting to meld with the Hawks here. Not sure if I have those numbers right for the Braves draft picks. I have to look up those and get back to on that in the next episode. But 2 first-round picks, the Braves could pick up a pitcher and a position player that makes almost anyone Braves farm spendable at that point. So we'll see how that works out. But for now, let's go back to the NBA draft. This is BOS Sports Blogcast. So I've compiled 3 mock drafts. Really did 4, except I didn't 4 or 5, but I didn't quite include them. The 3 included are Jeremy Woo on the ESPN, Cam Salerno, CBS, and Kevin O'Connor with Yahoo.com. Kevin O'Connor had some interesting takes, so I used his draft board to compile some statistics and as well physical attributes of these players in the first and second round, and felt like his draft board created a lot of talking points. So working from that for now, and we'll touch upon Cam Salerno's and Jeremy Woo's. Jeremy Woo, I believe, will have the most accurate board. Cam Salerno, he's got several trades, including the Thunder trading up to 9th. I don't see anyone trading with the Thunder, but he's an insider and a reporter, so see how that turns out. So, universal consensus number 1 draft pick, everyone has AJ Diabasta. And where things start to change on Kevin O'Connor's board is he has Cameron Boozer going to Utah Jazz. And of course, Carlos Boozer, he played in that franchise for years. That makes a lot of sense. But Cam Boozer going 3rd makes more sense to me. Of course, Utah, they just traded for Jaren Jackson Jr. At that point, if you draft Cam Boozer, you have to assume that they'd trade their Jaren Jackson Jr. or potentially Walker Kessler and make room there in that backcourt and make Jaren Jackson Jr. full-time center. That's a little bit dubious. I kind of like the height of Walker Kessler paired with Jaren Jackson Jr. having a twin tower situation in the West, maybe shades of like the Knicks do. And then pairing them with a player like Darian Peterson, I think would be a very nice core for the Utah Jazz going forward. But we could see here with the Cam Carlos Boozer connection, and that could potentially be a thing. Something to watch out for in these first 3 selections. Cam Boozer going 3rd to Memphis Grizzlies, where I think he'll wind up essentially replacing Jaren Jackson Jr. I think he would pair really well with Ja Morant. And they could potentially run and play some up-tempo ball. Of course, at Duke, Cam Boozer, he was a little bit more of a post presence, but it's not too much heavier than Kenyon Martin. He could certainly get out there and run the break if the Grizzlies were to orient him to do that. If Kevin O'Connor's right and Cam Boozer goes to Utah, Darren Peterson would be a lock with the Grizzlies, and you'd have to think at that point that Ja Morant is on the move. Widely already speculated anyways, but who he would be moved for would be quite an interesting conversation. I'm not sure quite where that would make sense. Perhaps with the Heat, with Tyler Hero potentially being traded away. So, 4th selection overall is unanimous. Everyone has Caleb Wilson going to the Bulls. And this is where I deviate a little bit from the consensuses, as I think Caleb Wilson, solid player. He'll be a solid, nice, lengthy career in NBA. I'd compare him to players such as Kurt Thomas, Elton Brand, a little bit more lengthy. Of course, Kurt Thomas is quite athletic himself there early on the Knicks. So I think that's a pretty good comparison. A little bit more of a throwback forward. I believe I saw a YouTube video of someone compare him to Evan Mobley of the Cavaliers, which would outtrack with the Kurt Thomas comparison. But for the 4th overall pick, there's several very interesting guards. One of them being Keaton Wagler. And I could see Keaton Wagler pairing very nicely with Josh Giddey. That would instantly give the Bulls a guard core that's starting to look a little bit like what is needed in championship contenders. Of course, the Celtics sort of pioneered that a few years ago, having Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jrue Holiday, having a combo of versatile guards that could play position 1, 2, 3 and do anything in those positions at a high level. And so Bulls having Josh Giddey and Keaton Wagner, I feel like would be a step towards having that. And pairing that with Matas Buzelis, be potentially interesting for the Bulls, more so to me than Caleb Wilson. Buzelis and Caleb Wilson, they might battle a little bit for playing time, depending on where they put Buzelis. I guess you could put Buzelis at the 3, but that might be a little bit crowded there as far as spacing goes. Looking at long-term picture. As well, touching on that guard combination, you also saw that a little bit with the Knicks as well. Jose Alvarado, Andre Shamet. They also brought in Jordan Clarkson. They had several guards who can do it all. Mostly focused in those first 2 positions. They also had several other starters who could play 2 through 4. Even OG Anunoby could play 2 in a pinch, but of course Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, they could all play. Mikal Bridges probably mostly 2 and 3. So going to the 5th pick, I think Caleb Wilson would absolutely be selected by the Clippers at that point. Clippers could not pass up, and they need to restock their backcourt as well. The Clippers. Kevin O'Connor, he has Mikael Brown Jr. going there, and I like that as well. Oh, excuse me. I like him to go a little bit later. I was looking at the 6th overall pick. So, 6th overall pick, Darius Acuff Jr. And I like this pick for the Brooklyn Nets. Acuff Jr. has all-star to superstar potential. Of course, the concern right now is a little bit undersized, just under 6'3". And you just saw Jalen Brunson, a 6'3" guard, win the championship. Some has talked about that potentially being a small guard resurgent. And I definitely see it with Darius Acuff Jr., him potentially being an all-star, superstar caliber player. Compare his game a little bit to CJ McCollum. He has a post-up game, which is interesting for being a smaller guard, as well as off the dribble, 3-point, playmaking, everything. Shade to Trae Young as well. He's got clutch factor and a long distance factor as well. So he could potentially be an electric star, and playing in Brooklyn feels like a solid fit for him. I really like that draft pick at 6 for the Nets, getting Darius Acuff Jr. And at that point, Kevin O'Connor, he had Sacramento selecting Keaton Wagler, which would be a great fit, great for them if he would fall there. But I think Keaton Wagler will be prized by Chicago, being 6'5", a taller guard. He can do it all as well. So for the 7th pick, I got Mikael Brown Jr. falling to 7th. Kevin O'Connor's got Ade Mara going to the Hawks. And that makes a lot of sense if the Jaylen Brown trade does not happen. As the Hawks, they stocked up on getting Aaron Wiggins and, of course, CJ McCollum. They've got guards right now. Got a decent core of guards. Kingston Flemings, probably still a top higher ceiling overall at that pick selection. And I still like Kingston Flemings as well, going 8. But before the Aaron Wiggins trade, I was pretty set on the Hawks drafting Kingston Flemings. After the Aaron Wiggins trade, I think the best course of action, if they can, is for the Hawks to package up the 8th pick and acquire Jaylen Brown with that, if possible. And we'll see how those chips lie. But now living in this world of just Aaron Wiggins on the Hawks, and we'll pretend that Jaylen Brown not coming to the Hawks. Ade Mara would make a lot of sense for the Hawks. 7'3", 7'6", giant wingspan. And coming into this Victor Wembanyama era NBA of players in the mid 7-foot range, playing the center position. Quite essential for the Hawks get above 7 feet in the center department. Least in rotation. I still like Onyeka Okongwu as a starter. You also look around the East. You have Bam Adebayo, Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Duren, 3 centers that the Hawks will likely all have to get through for years. And they can quite a bit outmuscle Onyeka Okongwu and outsize them. Not quite out muscle, but they outsize Onyeka Okongwu with their paint play. And so the Hawks, they just need a different look in rotation. Onyeka Okongwu, he getting beat up a little bit. Put in O'Day Mara. Put in Henry. I forgot his last name. The Henry guy we were talking about earlier. I've got him down somewhere. So getting into it, trade for Lauren would be a bolsterous as well. If the depending on where the chips lie, there's rumors that several draft picks from the Celtics will be going towards the Bucks. I guess there's a small chance that this 8th pick could go to the Celtics. You never know what will happen, although that seems quite a bit lopsided as far as a trade for the Celtics. Who knows? Maybe they just unload all their draft picks for a short window the next 2 or 3 years with Giannis and everything. And they somehow wind up with this 8th pick. O'Day Mara would be an incredible ad for them at center. And they'd have quite a trio. It wouldn't be a twin tower; it'd be a trio tower with Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Mara. But I also have to like this upcoming crop of guards in this class. Jeremy Wu, he has Kingston Fleming going to the Hawks. And before Aaron Wiggins trade aforementioned, I absolutely saw that. His all-star potential, athletic, sizable as a guard, just under 6'4", and perfectly fits into Quinn Snyder's system. Excuse me, Kingston Fleming's just under 6'3", with just under a 6'4" wingspan. So he provides some size and athleticism as well. He's very fast first step, does Kingston Fleming. That kind of attack will work really well in Quinn Snyder's 5-out motion offense. We're missing a little bit of a speed, a first step element in the isolation game and working in those sets. So it'd be a nice ad for the Hawks. Cam Salerno, he has, NBA Draft Net. Another mock draft reference. They had Braden Burries going, another stellar guard, but he's a little bit slower of a guard. Does not quite make as much sense for the Hawks, although he has all-star potential as well. He could potentially be shades of Cade Cunningham, or even a similar player, being sizable, being able to do just about everything on the floor. Speed, a little bit of a concern, but as sizable guards such as Cade Cunningham shown with post-game and dribble moves could still beat players in isolation in this day and era. So let's go into the world. Hawks landing Jaylen Brown. Talked about that at the top of the episode. At that point, the Hawks are very limited what they can do over 7 foot. I guess I got to scroll up here to get the player's name we were talking about earlier. I was a little bit unfamiliar with them. I was thinking that we're going to be selecting a guard out of Duke. Henry Vassar out of UNC we were talking about earlier. Isaiah Evans was the player that I was thinking the Hawks would take with the 23rd overall pick. But you get Jaylen Brown, you got to get over 7 foot in the center department. Likely going to be a backup player. Limited options in trade, limited options in free agency. In trade, getting over 7 foot, you might be able to pry a player like Derek Lively II or Zach Edey away from the Grizzlies or the Mavericks. The Derek Lively, probably a little bit more likely. Both two have 2 years of options left on the rookie contracts. Zach Edey, he probably fits more into the Grizzlies' short-term factors, and he will every now and then shoot a three-point shot. So maybe that's something that could be worked on in the Kyle Korver shot lab. Derek Lively does not shoot a three-point shot, so that might be quite a sticking point. Of course, the Hawks, when they had Clint Capella, they got around that by playing what they called a variation of the 5-out motion offense, which sometimes just felt like a safe word for triangle. As a lot of those 5-out, a variation 5-out offense would mostly look like triangle sets, basically triangles with a little bit different passing and movement concept. So, as far as the Hawks' other options, getting over 7 foot in free agency, you're basically looking at DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams, which DeAndre Ayton would potentially be a solid fit. He also doesn't shoot a 3-point shot, so a little bit of sticking point, and he has a player option he has to decline to get there as well. Jock Landale, you definitely want to re-sign Jock Landale, especially if you can get him around that veteran minimum, as he was on last year when the Hawks acquired him. He could certainly be a third-string center for the Hawks, play at that veteran minimum, and provide some shooting presence for the Hawks off the bench at the center position, which was an interesting factor and clutch at the time for Hawks. So, highly popular name, trade for Walker Kessler. It's looking like he's going to get a high contract. That's not going to work with the Hawks salary cap situation after acquiring Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown trade doesn't happen, that might be possible. So, well, running a little bit low on time here. Got to kind of speed through the rest of the draft. Bradenberries, projected by KOC, go to Dallas. Kingston Flemings, he's got going to Milwaukee. I like Nate Ahmet at 10th. His stats won't blow anyone away, but he's extremely athletic presence with a high upside. He might fit very well in a void on a Milwaukee Bucks team after a potential Giannis trade. I think that Giannis and Bobby Portis Jr. go to Celtics or the Heat in a potential trade. And they try to build up Kyle Kuzma's trade value as a starter, offload him at the deadline. And then you got Nate Ahmet to take the reins for 3 months to see what he can do. KOC's got him going to Golden State. Oklahoma City, he's got Kareem Lopez. Going down to Atlanta Hawks, he's got the Hawks selecting LeBaron Philon, who a sophomore, as he withdrawed from the draft last year and went in for another year to try to get better positioning in the draft, and still wound up in back about the same positioning. I don't quite see it for the Hawks. Even if they were to keep the 8th overall pick and not trade, no Jaylen Brown trade, I would like Kingston Flemings, I think. And then you get Isaiah Evans as well. From Duke, you get a Dookie to pair with. Or Henry Vossar. Henry Vossar is projected to be 24th overall selection by Jeremy Woo. So there might be some competition for him. Henry Vossar is a center like that, a decent 3-point shot, sizable, potentially play anywhere and fit in almost any team. So the Hawks also have the 57th overall pick, Jaden Henley. Another guard, sizable guard, a shooting guard with a little bit of upside. And I like that projection as well. So, be very interesting next couple days. We'll see if the Jaylen Brown trade happens. See if it doesn't. And as well, make more comments as well. Do an episode after the draft, probably about this time next week. And cover all the things the Braves did. Of course, what the Braves did, what the Hawks did, what the Hawks didn't do, what the Hawks still might have to do. I'll get all that and more. So be sure to stream previous episodes of the BOS Sports Blogcast. And I'll see you soon.